Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome to today's Tolkien Times. I'm the Man of the West, also from the Prancing Pony podcast. Thank you for joining me for folks' favorite Fandom Friday. Now, over the past few weeks, I've been doing something a little different for the rest of the series. I'm spending these Fandom Fridays chatting with other folks in the Tolkien community who were at San Diego ComicCon and the Amazon events there, so that we can share all of our experiences with you. Now, I do want to catch everybody when their memories are fresh, so all of these chats with people are happening in the first week of August. So today's interview will actually release, I think, the day after Season 2 has begun, or maybe yours will come out just 6 days before. Anyway, whatever the case, keep that timeline in mind in case our guest today has any predictions that end up way off base. So let's get to today. It is likely that she's familiar to you. She was kind enough to join me all the way back in week 3 of the show in June of last year. Back then, I described her as a breath of fresh air in a place where the Tolkien fandom can sometimes get a little rough, and that is true to this day. She's generous with her time, her kindness, and, gotta show you this, her stickers. All right? The tea is always right.
Yes.
And most importantly, folks, don't forget the official shills of the Rings of Power. All right.
Shill badge.
So, folks, please join me in welcoming Kaitlyn from Tea With Tolkien back to today's Tolkien Times.
Hi, thanks for having me back. So fun.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I would ask what you've been up to in the fandom since the last time you were here, but I know one thing you've been doing, and that's writing a book. So I want you to tell my listeners about this book. What's it about? When can we expect to read it? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so I am about halfway through writing it. I've reached the 50% of my target word count, so that was a good feeling. But it should be out in about spring of 2026.
Okay.
So the whole idea of the book is about allowing yourself to enter into Middle-earth and to be changed by it.
Oh.
And then to take that kind of inward change and go out into the world and make it a better place.
Oh, right.
So it's almost like you start in the Shire. You start by establishing a Shire in your own life. Like you cultivate your own interior life, your soul, your habits, your rhythms. And then after that, we move into sort of an outward perspective, like as if you're Frodo, you're starting in the Shire and then you're going to go out of the Shire.
Yeah.
So that's the idea for the book.
Okay.
I need to work on my elevator pitch. It's hard to describe sometimes.
That is hard.
Because it's just something that's still really in progress. But that's kind of the inspiration for the book is really, there's this line in the Fellowship of the Ring when they're going to go into Lothlorien, and Boromir is like, no one has left unscathed, and then he's corrected to say unchanged.
Right.
So it's kind of like nobody leaves Middle-earth unchanged, and if you do, I don't know, maybe you should try again, because Tolkien's world, it's just. There's so much there. There's so many different stories that have different impacts on people. So the whole idea of the book is just let's go deep into Middle-earth and then see what happens, and you can kind of learn more about yourself, learn more about our world as you're learning about Tolkien. So
I love that.
It's a lot,
it's going to be a really encouraging book. I think that probably a very good time for the fandom to take a look at that too. I just feel like the timing is right. I think we as Middle-earth fans might do well to consider how it can change us rather than just consuming it, as so many, I think, tend to do, or at least tend to start to do, though I think you're right. Everybody does get impacted. Nobody gets out of it unchanged. So.
Right. Even just with the small things, I appreciate trees so much more after reading Tolkien.
Yeah.
Little things like that. But then there's also just the bigger things like humility and pity, mercy. It's just such a major theme of the Lord of the Rings. So if you can kind of take those themes and let them transform your heart, I feel like, the world would be a lot better place.
It would. It certainly would. You get no argument out of me. That's going to be fantastic. And I'm definitely going to be pre-ordering it. Speaking of it, I'm assuming since it's almost a year and a half away, there's no pre-orders yet, but maybe there is.
No, not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. No. I submit the book in February. That's my due date.
February 25.
So I'm assuming pre-orders happen sometime after that.
Yeah. Well, once you do have, all of that stuff in place, let us know. We want to bring you on and maybe talk more about the book once it's finished and really get some folks interested so that they can pre-order it and be reading it the day it comes out. That'd be great.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it is time to get into our experiences at San Diego ComicCon. It was great to see you there again. Hadn't seen you since the last season of Rings of Power. So what were your highlights from either the Thursday night event or Hall H on Friday? And was there anything you learned at either event that has made you more excited for the launch of season 2 of the Rings of Power?
I think the highlights were definitely hanging out with the showrunners.
Yeah.
I just ended up hanging out with Patrick McKay, one of the showrunners. I feel like almost the whole time. We would chat for 10 minutes. I'd kind of go off, get a drink, and I'd turn around and run into Patrick again.
Oh no!
And he's just yeah. And he's just so friendly. And then he's so willing to talk about the show. I think you can tell there's just so much more confidence going into season 2 and so much more transparency where they're just they're like, ask me anything. I'll tell you anything. Go, go, go. And I actually had a list of questions to ask Patrick. He was like, what's next on your list? Let's go. Let's answer all of your questions. Yeah. So that was really fun. Yeah. And then, of course, it was really fun to see the actors again because I hadn't seen them in quite some time. And we had been, some of the cast and I, we've been chatting over the last 2 years. So it's just cool to see them again in person. And I almost feel proud of the show because I've been able to be a small part of the marketing aspect of it. So it's that's my show. Yeah. I see the trailer and I see them and I'm I just feel so proud of them because they're all doing such a great job. But really the confidence just stands out a lot. You can tell that they are, I think, we'll have to see the show to find out, but I feel like they've found their footing in that, we're really moving with the
story.
They're
at least more confident that they found their footing. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. They feel that they found their footing. So we'll see if we think they did as well. But it's just so cool to have a Lord of the Rings TV show that thousands of people are talking about and be able to connect with so many people through this show. Even if we all have our criticisms of the show, the best part about it is the community that comes from it.
100%. That's the Tolkien fandom in a nutshell. The community is everything, and it's been so good to see the community come around Rings of Power. Even some of us, myself included, who've been hard on the show from time to time. I actually concur with what you said about Patrick's openness. I think that was one of the encouraging things to me, and it's been a thread common with the people that I've been talking to about the show, is that his transparency and sort of all spoilers all the time, as he said in one of our conversations, and just happy to answer questions, really is a stark contrast to what we saw 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Before that, it was, they couldn't tell you anything. Yeah. Everything was a secret. And we didn't know these people too. It was so funny to me because I remember at Comic-Con 2 years ago, I was taking notes and I remember asking Matt, Nerd of the Rings, which one of these guys is Patrick and which one is JD? Because I had never met them before. I hadn't ever seen their faces. I couldn't remember who's who, but now it's oh, my bestie Patrick, we're just hanging out. So just the change in that 2 years can make has been really fun.
I agree. So hard question though, is there anything that you learned or saw or heard that maybe gives you a little pause for concern leading into season 2? Anything that makes you think, we're going to have to see where that goes?
Yeah, I'm not a really big fan. I think anyone who follows me knows I didn't really like the Harfoots that much.
That's true.
To me, they take time away from Numenor and Eregion, which are really the important stories.
Yeah.
So anytime we learn more about the Harfoots, I'm just kind of I'm just not excited about it. Tom Bombadil makes me nervous, even though the fact that, his costuming is cool. Everything that I've heard about him seems cool, but I don't really understand.
It's a hard character to put on screen.
Right. Yeah. It just, to me, I worry that they're going to fly too close to the sun with Tom Bombadil because, no one has attempted such a thing before.
Yeah.
So yes, things that I don't know, when we get to the Rune storyline, I have a hard time being excited about it because I feel like I'm really, really looking forward to a Region.
Yeah.
And so anything that takes away from that, like I can almost imagine, we're watching episode 6. This is pure speculation too. I don't know anything about it. Imagine you're watching episode 6. There's this dramatic scene between Celebrimbor and Anatar, and then it cuts to like Harfoots being silly. I don't look forward to that at all. So
I wonder if it's an issue with the fact that the stories that you are interested in, Region and Numenor, are stories that have been told. I mean, they're not stories they have the license to tell, right? These are unfinished tales versions of the stories for the most part. But we know from Unfinished Tales a lot about that battle in Region and a lot about Numenor from that and from the Akadabeth. But the stories in Rune and the story with the stranger and the story of the Harfoots are sort of those fill in the blanks part of the stories where they're making it up as they go. And so little hesitation there, perhaps. I don't know. What do you think?
It's just hard to see them as important, I guess, when there's a show called The Rings of Power. And I want to. They have nothing to do with it. I mean, eventually, we know Frodo gets the One Ring, but we're so far removed from that.
That's true.
I feel like I really am happy that they're in the show because I know a lot of people who really love the Harfoots and that's like the highlight for them. So I am glad that there's this kind of like diversity in different storylines. Mm-hmm. So there's something for everyone. But for me, it's just like every time we get a minute of Harfoots, that's losing a minute of a Region. So I'm just like,
Well, it's also losing a minute of something you're very well known for. One of the things that you are known for on X, pronounced Twitter, is your seeming admiration for the duo of Halbrand, also known as Sauron, Anatar, the Dark Lord, the Necromancer, and Galadriel, the Queen of Lothlorien. What do you think season 2 has in store for this power couple? And have you ever stopped to think Celeborn might be following you on Twitter?
I think he would understand. I mean, where is he?
That's fair. I mean,
you can't just leave your wife for 1,000 years. I mean, what do you expect? But I'm excited. The thing with Sauron and Galadriel is, they're not really going anywhere.
Right.
It's kind of a low stakes situation that they're in. But at the same time, I think it's very fun that for some reason, JD and Patrick were really drawn to the idea that Sauron is trying to get into Galadriel's mind. And so even though she says in the Fellowship, the way is shut, I feel like they're trying to show that the way being shut at the end of the Third Age must mean that the way was not shut beforehand. Okay. And that's kind of the way that they tend to write a lot of the show. I feel like they see a character in point Z at the end of the Third Age, so they want to start them at point A.
Right.
So it's just fun. I don't know. And I love the idea of the light and the dark. And really, I think the most interesting part is that we get this in season 1, you have Sauron like almost repenting. And it's kind of like a version, since they don't have the rights to the Silmarillion, we don't get to see him repenting before Eonwe. So they're like, maybe he can kind of repent before Galadriel. But then at the same time, he's kind of been manipulating the whole time as well. And I think it's just like a really good way to characterize Sauron. And they're kind of using Galadriel as a like embodiment of light. And so Sauron is going to repent in a bit. So he does that kind of by trying to ally himself with her. Yeah. But it's kind of like there are so many layers to it. And I think it's been really fun discussing.
Yeah.
I don't see them having a lot of scenes together in season 2 just because, they're kind of going on different paths.
True.
But what it seems like from the marketing is that they're sort of like connected cosmically, as it's been described. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens.
So this season, maybe instead of Galadriel, we're going to have Brimbor.
Yes. I mean, it is. It's the season of Brimby and Anatar.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll just make it publicly known now. I don't want to see Celebrimbor this season. But yeah, who knows what's going to happen.
We'll see.
Any crazy, wild season 2 predictions that you could be totally wrong on? That's okay.
I don't know. I feel like I know too much that I can't make predictions anymore.
Yeah.
after hanging out with Patrick.
Spoilers.
Yeah. So I don't know. I hesitate to like speculate on anything because people get very attached to speculation. But maybe I would say, I don't know. We might have some fun drama between the other elves, like the elves of Eregion. Maybe some minor character drama. I bet some cool stuff will happen with Arondir. Just knowing him, he's a cool guy. Cool stuff just happens to him.
Yeah, that's true. That's going to be a fun storyline to see with him and Isildur, as you can see, just barely, as he kind of hops out of that cart and does some amazing martial arts stuff. You can see Isildur sort of in the back cowering. You're like, ooh, that's Isildur. So that's going to be a fun storyline to see.
Yeah, and Theo, too, because there's this whole, mystery surrounding who is his father. And that was one cool thing that they mentioned at Hall H, is that eventually we're going to figure it out. Yeah. So I'm excited for that. I have a guess that he's maybe like a descendant of the true king of the Southlands.
Ooh.
Because I've always theorized that he's either going to be the king of the dead that gets summoned by Aragorn in the Return of the King, or he's going to be the Witch King. So either one for me would be really fun.
Yeah.
Theo.
I'm leaning towards an Nazgul, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I know. We'll have to find out. I think I'd originally pegged Halbrand as the king of the dead because I thought it was too obvious that he'd be Sauron.
Same.
That was my.
Well, I even had.
That was my thought.
I had people like literally leaking the information to me.
Yeah.
Halbrand is Sauron, and I still didn't believe them.
Same. I thought it was too obvious. I'm like, oh no, that's too easy. Yeah. So I think that's why we can probably say the stranger is Gandalf, because again, they're going to trick us, but they're not going to trick us, right? They're going to make it kind of obvious. I don't know. That's just me, but we'll find out. Well, Kaitlyn, if folks want to follow you on socials, learn a little bit about your book, or maybe join your community, where can they find you?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. It's just Tea With Tolkien anywhere, and teawithtolkien.com. So I'm on, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, even though I don't use it that much.
Yeah.
YouTube is a new thing I've been working on. And then we just have our website. We also have a Discord community that is free for anyone to join, and you can learn about that at teawithtolkien.com/Discord.
Excellent. Easy. All right. Well, Kaitlyn, thank you so much for taking the time today to join me. It was a pleasure to see you at Comic-Con last month, and I hope to see you again before season 3 comes out.
Hopefully.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Well, folks, that is it for today's Fandom Friday. But come back next Friday to meet another of your fellow Tolkien fans and maybe even learn what niches of the community you might be interested in exploring. And if you're interested in joining me here for a future Fandom Friday, please let me know by emailing bartleman@theprancingponypodcast.com. Please visit patreon.com/Tolkien Times to learn how you can support the show, get an ad-free feed, bonus episodes, and more. And then join me again tomorrow on today's Tolkien Times as we wrap up this week with Second Age Saturday. And if you're watching this on YouTube, by now you know the drill. Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Please follow or subscribe in your podcast apps and follow @Tolkien Times on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Finally, as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.